welcome to my channel. Today I have for you my first ever Halloween decor DIY video here on my channel. I usually don't decorate for Halloween, but my son's getting a little older now and more into Halloween, so this year I decided that I was going to, and I wanted to make some more affordable Halloween decor, and that's what I'm going to be showing you guys today. They are all more farmhouse rustic style, so if you're into that style, then I really think that you're going to love these. All right, let's go ahead and get started on today's DIYs. First up are these wooden blocks that say Boo, and for this project I'll be using wooden blocks that I picked up from Hobby Lobby, some wooden letters from Dollar Tree, Waverly Inspirations chalk paint in the color plaster and ink, my hot glue gun, some sandpaper, and a paintbrush. I'm going to be using 3 blocks for this project, and I'm starting out by painting all 3 of them with that Waverly Inspirations chalk paint in the color ink. Since this paint is black, I did only have to paint on 1 coat, which made the project go by a lot faster. And while those blocks were drying, I took the letters BOO from my wooden letter pack, and I'm just painting those in the Waverly Inspirations chalk paint in the color plaster. Once my blocks have completely dried, I'm taking some sandpaper and I'm sanding around all of the edges of the blocks to give them a distressed look. The sandpaper that I'm using in today's video is 120 grit because that's what I had laying around the house, but you can pretty much use any kind of sandpaper to distress. When I'm sanding the flat side of the blocks, I'm sanding in the same direction so that any lines or sanding marks that you're going to see in the blocks are all going to be consistent and the same. After I'm all finished sanding my blocks and my letters have dried, I'm going to be attaching them to the front of my blocks with some hot glue. I'm just placing a little bit of hot glue all around the back of the letters, and then I'm just placing it right in the center of the block. When I'm placing the glue on the back of the letters, I'm letting it sit for just a second before I place it in the center of my block. By doing it this way, I find that the glue doesn't smush out past the letters. You can either do it like this or just use less glue. And that's the last step for this really simple and inexpensive DIY. Let's go ahead and move on to DIY number 2, which is this October 31st sign. For this project, I'll be using a wooden canvas from Walmart, wooden letters and numbers from Dollar Tree, Waverly Inspirations chalk paint in the colors plaster and ink, sandpaper, a paintbrush, and my hot glue gun. I'm using this wooden canvas to where it's framed around all of the edges, and I'm painting all of the edges in the Waverly Inspirations chalk paint in the color ink, and I'm also painting the inner edge with that pink color as well. Once I've got all of my edges painted, I painted the inside of my canvas with the Waverly Inspirations chalk paint in the color plaster, and when I thought that paint was dry, I started sanding and distressing around the edges of the canvas. But I'm glad that I did because I really liked the excess sand that went into my wet paint. It gave it a really nice distressed look. And after I was done with that, I started painting my letters and numbers in the Waverly Inspirations paint in the color ink. Once my paint was dry on my letters and numbers, I started hot gluing them into my frame, and I just placed them where I thought it looked centered before I hot glued them. I just placed a little bit of hot glue on the back of each letter and number and then pressed it down on the inside of the canvas. Gluing the letters and numbers in is the last step in this DIY. Again, I love how easy and inexpensive this one was to make, just like the Boo blocks. But since we're done with this one, let's go ahead and move on to DIY number 3. These next DIYs do require quite a few materials. I used these 3 block houses from Michaels, buffalo check ribbon from Hobby Lobby, some scissors, Waverly Inspirations chalk paint in the colors ink, plaster, and pumpkin. I also used some signs that I printed out from my computer, a sponge paintbrush, Mod Podge, these pumpkin and leaf wooden stickers from Dollar Tree, some tape, buffalo check craft paper, a pen, my hot glue gun, a couple different paint brushes. I'm also going to be using some paint pens, a crayon, and some jute. For the wooden houses, I'm doing 3 different styles, and this first one I'm painting all of the sides in the Waverly Inspirations chalk paint in the color ink. Once I have the edges all painted and the paint has dried, I'm then measuring out my house on top of that craft paper and then cutting it out to size. Now that my paper is all cut out, I'm going to be placing some Mod Podge on the front of the wooden house and then simply placing the cut craft paper over top of the Mod Podge so that it sticks to the wooden house. After my Mod Podge has dried, after about 15 to 20 minutes, I'm then taking another coat of Mod Podge and I'm just painting that over top of my craft paper so that my paper adheres to my wooden block really well. Once my top layer of Mod Podge is all dry, I'm then taking my 120 grit sandpaper and sanding around all of the edges to distress the house and also get off any excess overlapping paper. Next, I'm going to be placing some jute around the top portion of the house. To do that, I'm using some hot glue. I'm just placing some hot glue on the back side of the house and then putting the jute over top so that it stays in place, and then wrapping the jute around my house until about 5 or 6 layers of jute, and then just hot gluing that down. I decided I wanted to add a wooden leaf, so I'm just painting that in that Waverly Inspirations chalk paint and plaster. I'm peeling off the sticker and then I'm hot gluing that right on top of the jute. And that's the last step to complete this buffalo check style house. Now I'm going to be moving on to the next style. For this next house, I'm going to be painting the sides and the front with just one coat of that Waverly Inspirations chalk paint in the color ink. After my paint is completely dried, I'm taking my 120 grit sandpaper once again, and I'm sanding the very front and the edges of the house to distress it. Once I've got my house all sanded, I'm going to be taking the words that I printed off of my computer, and I'm going to be scribbling this orange crayon all over the back of where the words are, and then I'm going to be cutting out the paper so that I can fit it on my wood block a little bit better. And this is going to work as my transfer for my blocks. Next, I'm just going to center my paper and tape it onto my wood block, and then take my pen and just write over the words, and by pressing the ink pen down over the words, it's going to transfer that orange crayon onto my wood so that I know where to paint. After I've gone over both of my words with my pen, I'm going to be taking off the paper and then just using my paint pen to go over the words that I just transferred onto the wood. And I will say that a white crayon would have been a lot better on the black than the orange to do the transfer, but I was able to see it just fine for this. And that is the last step for this house, and now I'm going to be moving on to my third and final house. I'm painting one coat of the Waverly Inspirations chalk paint in the color plaster on the front and the sides of this house. Then I'm taking another printed quote or saying, and I'm doing the orange crayon on the back of it just like I did the other one. I'm cutting that out to size and then taping that onto my wooden block. Once I've got that all taped down, I'm going to be using my pen to go over the words just like I did on the last house. Once I've gone over all of my words with my pen, then I'm going to be taking off the paper from the block, and this transfer was easier for me to see since it was orange on the white. Once I've got that all taken off, I'm taking my black paint pen and I'm just writing over the words that I just transferred onto the block. I was going to leave my house that plaster color, but I decided I wanted to distress it a little, so I'm taking some of that ink chalk paint and I'm just dry brushing it over top of all of the white. Then I decided I wanted my words to be distressed too, so I'm taking some of that plaster paint color and I'm dry brushing it over top of that black paint pen that I had written my words on with. Next, I'm taking the wooden pumpkin sticker from Dollar Tree and I'm painting that in the pumpkin Waverly Inspirations paint. And then once that's dry, I'm taking the plaster paint color and I'm dry brushing that over top of the pumpkin. Once all of the paint's dried on that, I'm going to be hot gluing it in the center of Farm Fresh and the pumpkin words. And once that's all hot glued on, I'm just taking a small piece of this buffalo check ribbon and hot gluing it right above the words Farm Fresh. And that's the last step for this house, and that wraps up today's DIYs. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified of all of my future videos, and please let me know in the comments down below what kind of videos you want to see from me next. As always, thank you so much for watching.